Now let's work quickly on some of these other elements. This should go fast. If you have been following the tutorial, let's get a rectangle to be able to put our image in. So we will start out, we'll make it about that size, but let's take a look. This box is 381 high, so we want this to be 381 tall. Okay, and then we can choose that and the rectangle. Let's get the tops to line up, and there we go. Now look back to that box and we're going to click on fill, and instead of a fill we are going to put an image in it. And here's where we're going to get the horse. Choose image. Mine is in my downloads. All right. So here we have our horse image, and I can reposition it, and I could tell it that I want it to fit. There we go. Now we got it in that right place. Good. The button is the next thing, and with the button, we're also going to take the rectangle tool. We're going to draw a box, and we want it to be our dark purple. So remember, we don't click the fill here. We're going to click the 4 dots, and we're going to pick dark purple. Now, if you notice, we have, this is a pill shape, and this is a rectangle. And pill shapes do not start with the ellipse, they start with the rectangle. And what we want to do is we want to be able to drag the corners in to make them rounded, to make it into the pill shape. But if you look at it here, you don't see the inner circles to be able to pull this in. So what I need to do is I need to get closer in so I can see these circles, and then I can pull them in as much as I want for that pill shape. All right, so that's easy enough. So if you don't see them, you're too far out. I also need to get some words on here. And let's see, what am I saying? View show. Okay, so say view show. And with this, I have the timer text, and I can apply a text style, with which I will apply the menu text. Very good. That's there. All right, now I want to make sure that these are aligned properly. So I'm going to center a vertical and horizontal centers together. And then I'm going to group them. And remember, I group because I want them to maintain their own color styles there. I don't want to make them a union. Okay, good. So one of the last elements we need would be the quote. So let me get another text box here. And there's just a couple steps I'm going to do with the text box. So one, I'll put that in there, but I actually I'm going to duplicate it, drag it out, because I want to get rid of, the Art International here. I'm also going to get rid of the quotation marks because I'm going to do those separately. And on this one, I'm going to get rid of everything except for the Art International. So now I have them separate. And on this one, let's make the box to fit. On this one, let's make the text box to fit. And it already was fitting, so we're going to keep it there. Okay, now we want to make this I want to break the one style that it's on, and we want to add a text style to it. And so I'm using the fancy, and I really should have one more text style here that would be fancy text as opposed to fancy headline, But for right now, let's use this, and let's just simply going to undo that though, so I can just take the text down. So if you notice that undo link, it still keeps the basic font. It keeps the basic font, but it will let me change this, some of the style here. So let's just take that down to 60, and that's better shape. All right. Now I want to change the fill of it, and so I can go down, and remember, we don't click the fill here, we click here, and I believe this is the dark purple as well. And we just need to get this in dark purple. There we go. And last thing we're going to do, we're going to get some quotation marks. I'm going to duplicate this. Actually, I'm not going to duplicate that. So let me undo. Let me get these bigger. I want to get these so they are going to be quite large. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to take them nice and large. Maybe even just a tad larger. And I'm going to change them into the Figma. And this is not a style that I'm going to use over and over again, so I probably would not make a text style out of this. I would just play with that, the size. Okay, so on this one, I'll keep that, and this one I'll keep that, and then replace it, and I'll also make it the purple. Put this one down here, replace it. And it's a common thing to make the quotation marks much larger font on websites than the actual text itself. It's a style, and so that's something that you can do. All right, so we basically have this recreated, and what we need to do at this point is to do some refinements. And that really went out too far. Let's get back in. Okay, so let's just look here, and we want to get some standardized sizing between these different elements. So let's go over, and I want to make sure that I have, I want to make sure that this is a group here so I can move it around easily. So if we haven't already done this, we're going to group that selection, so now we can move it easily. So if you see now, we have 79 between here and here. And let's go ahead and group these different elements as well. And so I'm now going to group that. And now I can move this easily. And then let's go ahead and group these elements. Okay, and so we had 79 between there, but let's look and see, what do we have here? What do we have going on? So we know that we have 96 between up here and up here, but this is still not great. So what could we do? One of the things we could do is we could select these, and let's go to Tidy Up and see what it gives us with some of the proportions here, in which, so we have, it helps some, but is that perfect? Or not. So let's look again. What do we got here? Got 100. What do we got here? And we got 89 to 89. So it's still not perfect there. Don't like that in particular. Great. So they are now the same distance apart from here to here, from here to here. And then all we would want to do is we could create that same distance here. If our artboard ends up being longer than we want it, just click on the artboard title and we can make that shorter. So we can do that. On the other hand, we might have a small menu at the bottom. If you notice over here, I have a contact and privacy, which is something you find at the foot of most websites. So let's just go ahead and make this last little adjustment here. So privacy. And let's go ahead and make this our body copy and put it up just a tiny bit and duplicate it, drag it down, and contact. We could also easily go to our icon page and get maybe Instagram, Facebook, Twitter logos that we could add in down here. That would be another thing we might find in a footer. But overall, we have now built a page. There are also refinements we could do here. Refinements I can make is we could put a drop shadow on here. Make it appear a little bit more like it's floating as opposed to being as flat as it is. So we could go to Effects and we can add, we have a drop shadow. We have other choices here, but let's do a drop shadow. And it's pretty subtle right now. It's there, so if I go in, you can see it right under there, but it doesn't have quite the impact I want. So if I wanted to change that drop shadow, I just click over here and I can change how large that drop shadow is. So if we back out, now it feels a little bit more like it's floating. And so drop shadows are nice for giving that type of effect. And as we're ending here, let me just point out that putting different information in different rows like this is very common on websites, so that visually, that visual hierarchy, we can see what information goes together and when we're moving on to a new idea. So it's very common to have different colored rectangles with information in it. So it's visually simple for your users to be able to see what's going on. Another refinement that I want to cover with you is to create a hover state. If you are on a website and you hover over a button, it should change in some way. There should be some change of color or motion that lets the user know that this is a clickable link. So let's learn how to do this real quickly. So I'm going to click on my button here, and I'm going to do Command D. I'm going to pull it out off of here, and I am going to make it look the opposite of what it does right now. So I am going to make my text to be dark purple, and so select dark purple, and my rectangle I am going to make a soft gray, so it's a little easier to see. Okay, so I am happy with that. It looks very different, so when people hover over this, it should change to this. Now I need to make sure that I turn this hover state of my button into a frame. So I'm going to select both the words and the pill form, and I'm going to right click and select frame selection. Now it's its own frame. Excellent. So far in everything we've done with Figma, we've been working in the design menu or panel, and we are now going to go over to prototyping at this top right hand. And we are going to connect this button to this one. And if you notice, there is a circle that appears here, and when I hover over it, there's a plus sign. I'm going to connect it. Once it's connected, this panel comes up, and I am going to say that we want this interaction to happen while hovering, and I want to navigate to an open overlay, and I want it to dissolve. Okay, so that's good. And instead of a centered overlay, I'm going to call it manual. So now that we have it set up how we want it to be, let's click this play button that's at the top here. And it's also the present button, but I call it the play button. And we can see what our web page would look like if it were actually on the web. So that's one of the lovely things about Figma, why it's so good for being able to create a wireframe, is it can show us what it would look like. So here we go, and now you can see what our hover effect looks like. So I think that's pretty cool. All right. We put it together. Your next task is going to be to create your About page, and we want to remember all of those things that we've talked about what a good About page should have. Should get attention. We need to make people want to read more. We should use storytelling in order to get them more interested in what we're saying. We should introduce our brand, our topic, our product, ourselves if it's a portfolio, provide some level of credibility. You should have some type of unique selling proposition. What makes you, the brand, the company, different than others? And a call to action. What's something that people can do after they view your About page? Give them somewhere else to go. Can't wait to see what you all create.